All cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I would like to call tonight's Parish Council meeting to order. We'll have the invocation and the pledge by Mr. Dirk Guidry.
Loving and gracious God, loving and gracious God, help us keep the common good before us. Strengthen our gifts of wisdom, courage, and respect for the views of others. Strengthen us to continue to work with our leaders, seeking ever more just society that acts in harmony and interdependence with all creation. In the name of Jesus, in union with your spirit, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we please get a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Navy?
Yeah.
Mr. Harding?
Here.
Mr. Michel? Mr. Amade?
Here.
Mrs. Domain?
Here.
Mr. Babin? Mr. Dirk Guidry? Mr. Trosclair? Madam Chairwoman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you. Approve the minutes of the special session held on July 25th, 2022. Moved by Mr. Carl Harding. Second by Mr. Dirk Guidry. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Approve minutes of the regular council session held on July 27th, 2022. Moved by Mr. Dirk Guidry, second by Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Distribute minutes of the regular council session held on August 10th, 2022. That has been done. Item 1, general business. Presentation by parish administration relative to capital projects, including drainage, utility, road, and quality of life projects, as well as other matters related to the operations and maintenance of parish government. Mr. Mike Toups.
Madam Chairperson, we have no reports to give this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toups. Item B is a resolution supporting the inclusion of all 10 of the proposed GOM leased sales for the final outer continental shelf oil and gas leasing program. Moved by Mr. Dirk Guidry, second by Mr. Steve Trosclair. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 2, public wishes to address the council. In accordance with Section 2-7 of the Terrebonne Parish Home Rule Charter, the public will be heard and can speak for 3 minutes on any related parish government without discussion or question or answers for non-agenda items. We have 2 speaker cards. Mr. Anthony Rainey.
My name is Anthony Rain. I reside at 3593 A Highway 316 in Gray, Louisiana. And I'm here to discuss its own agenda for the dredging and the cleaning of the bayou of North Terrebonne. And we would like to see what can we get done immediately since Hurricane Ida, the bayous are flooded now. And we have a problem with the drainage because this is the drainage here and the bayou is up here. So it's clogged, and now we're starting to have street flooding in the Gray area. When they get a heavy rain, we get areas between the UPS, 2316 by the Lucky Mart, and a little further down to Shriver Auto. We're getting a lot of flooding in that area, and we're trying to see when can we get some dredging and tree removal out of those bayous so we can get some flowing going in those bayous, and so because people homes in the back of that by the bayous are starting to flood and get water into them.
And since this is on the agenda, Mr. Toups, would you like to address this issue? I do understand that this is a pretty complicated issue.
Ma'am, I can either address it now or wait till other speakers speak, and then I don't know if Councilman Harding would like to speak first, but any way you want to do it.
Okay. Okay. We'll wait for the agenda item.
That's
All right.
fine.
Thank you, sir. All right. We have another speaker card, Mr. Arnold Adams.
My name is Arnold Adams. I preside at 161 Bon Jovi Boulevard, Gray, Louisiana, 70359. I represent the Gray Improvement Committee, an organization, nonprofit organization in the community of Gray, and also the residents of Gray. We have a concern and a need for a senior citizen program, the one similar to that they have in Mechanicsville. We've met with Gulf Coast representatives to see what's involved in that type of program, and we also met with our council, Mr. Carl Harding, and we're here tonight to ask the council to consider this program in the Gray area, because Gray is growing, the north part of Terrebonne is growing. These ladies and gentlemen that are here tonight, they are senior citizens, and they would like to have somewhere to go and spend some of their extra time and leisure time and do things that senior citizens do. So, you know, it's a great need for something like this in the Gray community, so we're asking y'all to take in consideration of our concerns and work with Mr. Harding on this project. Anybody have any questions or comments they would like to ask?
Well, we can't address it tonight because it's not on our agenda, but we do appreciate it. And Mr. Carl Harding, if he puts it on the agenda at a later date, we can discuss it at that point. But I
Okay.
appreciate you bringing it to us.
Thank
Thank
y'all.
you. Item 3, committee reports. Item A, Public Service Committee, Mr. John Amity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Public Services Committee held on August 22nd, 2022, and I have no public hearings.
We have a motion by Mr. Amity, a second by Mr. Dirk Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item B, Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Carl Harding.
Yes, I make a motion that
Give me a
council-
minute.
So,
Okay.
I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Budget and Finance Committee held on August 22nd, 2022. I have one public hearing, and that is an ordinance to amend the 2022 adopted operation budget and the 5-year capital outlay budget of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. 1, Office of Emergency Preparedness, $70,340. Animal Shelter, $45,000. Health Unit Construction, $1 million. General Fund Coroner's Office, $30,000. Housing Preservation Grant, $154,524, and call for a public hearing on September 14th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
We have a motion by Mr. Harding and a second by Mr. Trosclair. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item C, Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee, Mr. Carl Harding.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to accept and ratify the minutes of the Policy and Procedure and Legal Committee held on August 22nd, 2022, and I have no public hearing.
We have a motion by Mr. Harding and a second by Mr. Amity. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 4, streetlights. As per Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second by Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. Item A, Recreation District Number 3A, one expiring term on 8/26/2022 and one expired term. Mr. Randy L. LaBeouf Jr. expresses his interest to be reappointed. We have a motion to open and close and appoint by Mr. Guidry, a second by Mr. Harding. All in favor? Any opposed?
You got two appointments there. You have to hold one over. Hold one over, yeah.
Okay. And to hold one over by Mr. Dirk Guidry. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 6, vacancies to various boards, committees, and commissions. Item A, Terrebonne Parish Tree Board, 2 vacancies due to resignation. Veterans Memorial District, one expiring term on 9/17/2022, representing the parish president south of the Intercoastal. TITA, one vacancy representing the parish council. We'll move on to item 7. Council members request discussion of. Mr. Harding. You have a motion to discuss impossible action regarding dredging the debris and removal from Bayou Terrebonne and other canals and bayous in Terrebonne Parish and other related matters thereto. A move by Mr. Harding and a second by Mr. Trosclair. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Carl Harding.
Yes, first, I thank Mr. Rainey in filling out his speaker card. And we're going to honor the fact that his conversation could be discussed right now. He just didn't put 7A on there, so we're going to actually have him an opportunity to come speak also at this time. What we want to do, are there any other speaker cards?
No.
Okay. Mr. Rainey, what we're going to actually ask you to do and state your case, then Mr. Mike Toups is going to speak. Hopefully, some of the things that you say and the conversation that we've had previously between you and I and the people in the gray area, along with me and Mr. Mike Toups and Mr. David Rome and a couple of other people that have an interest and an involvement in this particular situation. It does open up not just for the Terrebonne Bayou. If you read it correctly, it actually addressed the issue with other concerns that may involve some drainage in reference to that because of the condition of Bayou Terrebonne. So no one else is here to speak of anything else. I would actually turn this over to you, then Mr. Toups, then I'll come back.
Mr. Toups, let me turn on your light.
Yeah, not Mike. I mean, Anthony's first.
Repeat what I said, or y'all? Okay, well, my name is Anthony Rain. I reside at 3593A Highway 316 in Gray, Louisiana, in the Gray community. And we're having problems since Hurricane Ida, with the bayous being with a lot of debris, and it need to be dredged. At least from Shreveport area, Johnson Ridge, coming on back towards Homer, towards Evergreen, okay, and Coteau Road. But in between the UPS and 316 by the Lucky Mart, when they have a heavy rain, the water is not going into the bayou because whoever was the contractor, whatever, or the engineer that did those roads, this is how they drain in here. But this is where the road is. So we need to go in those bayous and dredge that and take some of that debris out of there. And we have a lot of trees since Hurricane Ida is down behind a lot of people's houses.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that. We're going to let Mr. Toups address this. Would you like some additional time, sir?
Ma'am?
Would you like additional time?
No, ma'am.
No,
I thought you
right,
told me
yeah.
I was finished.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Mr.
waiting on his
Toups.
response.
Okay. This council approved administration's recommendation to hire All South Consulting Engineers to handle this project on July 27th, roughly a month ago. About 2 weeks ago, we had a kickoff meeting with All South. We've identified that we have about 15 miles of waterway from Shreveport all the way to the Intercoastal that does need to be cleaned out. We did receive a grant from the United States Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Services in the amount of $1.6 million to fund this project. It's a 90-10 match, so we roughly got $1.45 million from the feds, and we'll have to come up with $145,000 or thereabouts. We've identified that there's roughly 50 bridges between the northern part of Bayou Terrebonne and the Intercoastal. So what that means is that we have to negotiate right of access between each one of these bridges with individual property owners to get the equipment from the land onto the bayou, get all the trees cut, cleaned, removed, put on the barges, and then put back onto the bank, put on dump trucks, and hauled off. This is a very time-consuming process. We've already begun the work that is all south, has begun talking to the property owners. Now, how long that takes, we have no idea, but they are working diligently on it. With that said, we do have certain restrictions that we have to follow to meet this grant. So All South, again, is working. I wish I could give you a time frame, but again, when you're negotiating with 50, we got to identify the prime locations to get these pieces of equipment in and out the bayou, and then we have to negotiate the right-of-way with each one of the property owners. But it's an active project. We've got it funded, and as soon as we can get the right-of-ways, we can proceed because, excuse me, we have received the necessary permits both from the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers. So as soon as we get all these right-of-ways done, we can begin the bidding process.
All right. I have a few questions, okay? Mr. Amity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Toups, Mr. Rainey also mentioned dredging. We also have a project on the books for dredging from the intercoastal all the way to the Thibodeau line. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. That's a totally separate project that's being designed by GIS, and it calls to dredge the Bayou Terrebonne to about a -6 foot. The issue with that is there are a lot of old wooden bulkheads, and we got to be very careful what we dredge, and because we no doubt are going to end up buying some bulkheads as we dredge. But these are two completely separate projects.
All right. We have a few more questions. Mr. Trosclair.
Yeah, Mike, that 1.4 million, just thinking in my head, don't seem like a lot of money to do that scope of work. Or is that the cost, the projected cost of the whole project, or are we gonna come back with some more money?
All South is working on an estimated cost, and we hope that it'll be covered by the grant. If not, we'll have to find a funding source for the Delta.
Thank you.
Dr. Navy.
That was my question, but the other question I had, what is the time frame? You're talking about dredging and things. What is the actual time frame to start in the completion process to these projects that we have in place? Because I think that would be a good information to give to the resident. Is that a time frame to that, or we don't know, or?
Again, I'll repeat, we have to get right of access from at least 50 property owners, negotiate with each one of them. I would guess 4 to 6 months before we could actually go for bid.
Wow, so
And
we're talking
that's-
about this won't happen, and we in hurricane season right now.
I-
I'm just asking. I'm just asking the hard questions. I'm not doing this at you or anything like that. I'm just asking, just in
But-
general.
Again, you think about having to go and identify where's the prime locations. You begin with those properties, and if you can't come to an agreement with that one, then you have to look at an alternative location and then start negotiations with that property owner. And that's where All South is right now. They've begun this right-of-way access process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Navy. Mr. Daniel Babin.
Mike, I know it's two separate projects, but on the dredging, are you gonna have to isolate all 50 of those again as well? Or is it gonna be a different type of dredging that you're gonna have to secure property to pump it to?
Good question. No, we hope that we can utilize the same right-of-way access for both projects. That's what we intend to do.
And there's no way that these projects can work simultaneously?
No, sir. You're dealing with two different contractors on two different projects, and the last thing you want to do is have contractors pointing fingers at each other.
And I understand that, but I mean, the main thing is we're not gonna have a duplication of services here, right? And have to pay twice to have, that $1.4 million can go a lot further if we don't have to use $200,000 to secure right-of-ways from people, yeah.
Correct. Again, the first one is to remove the fallen trees and the debris, and then the second one is to do the actual dredging.
Yeah, because Terrebonne is very important because it drains a lot of people, but all of the buyers, all of the ones that we represent, some have been somewhat clean, but there's still, in Grand Kai, we had a barge last week taking up a 40-foot boat shed that was in the navigable part. So there's a lot of it going on. It's difficult for the citizens to understand when we talk about 4 to 6 months before we can even get going on something. But we have to jump through all of these hoops, and it makes it very difficult, because I'm gonna have a question later on something else too. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Babin. Mr. Harding.
Anthony, I'm gonna say something, then we're gonna close out with you. All right. Of course, some of this was in the work in reference to Bayou Terrebonne. We're working with the state and we're working with the federal program, aren't we?
That's correct.
All right. So that's two different things. We already established the fact that, one's coming first, and I don't think it's really pointed out. Well, what's going to happen? Well, of course, we got to clean the debris out first, right?
That is correct.
All right. Once we clean the debris out, we'll actually go back and we actually do the dredging. I spoke with Ms. Johnson, who's the president of this committee that's actually representing a lot of people in Gray. And one of the things that she suggested, the fact that, what if someone comes up and say, you know what, I want to help my community out. I'll live along the bayou. I'll donate my property. So is that possible to cut out some of the red tape, or y'all already designated certain areas, or All South has already designated certain areas that they have decided to use? If there can be alternate locations that these people here themselves can actually find to cut out some of the red tape, and that would expedite this matter. Is that possible?
That would be an excellent suggestion. So I strongly suggest anybody that would be willing to do that to contact me or Stevie Smith with All South or David Rome in our Public Works Department, and we would be willing to work with them.
They're offering their property.
If they're willing to do that, we would definitely take them up on their offer.
Yeah, and if that's, it's just like Mrs. Navy is saying, under the same circumstances that you would offer anyone else at, and they have to understand, and people must have to understand, not just them, anywhere that we're doing business, and this happens to apply itself in Terrebonne Parish, it's the fact that that's fair market value. Some of those circumstances that they're running into is not people perhaps looking at for fair market value. Mr. Jules, you want to?
You got a question?
Well, I was.
If you want me to answer about drainage rights, three things come to my mind. Number one, there's a statute that would allow us to go on property for drainage. Number two is, I believe we have a 50-foot or 100-foot servitude by operational law that was adopted by Terrebonne a long time ago. Number three is, though you do have a lot of houses and businesses along there, and it's just hard to go impede on there. But by Terrebonne was declared, I think, with a number of other buyers like Buy Black, Big Buy Black, Little Buy Black, several buyers back in I don't want to get my dates mixed up, but years ago they were declared as major drainage arteries. The parish filed the necessary paperwork and recorded to get what they call a 38-113 Louisiana Revised Statute 38:113 servitude, and adopted parish ordinances that would allow us access and actually to use that property. And the other thing that I'll have to discuss with Mike is there are certain ordinances and statutes that do not allow property owners to obstruct drainage. Now that the flip side that comes with that we got to deal with the public, because there's a lot of people along there. So the question is, how far do you go in telling people that they got to remove things that they shouldn't be in obstructing a natural drainage canal? And I don't know enough yet about that project, but I will have those discussions with Mike and give him some ideas that I have that possibly could help them speed up the project. I do know that we had a project like where we had even the right-of-ways, but we went to the property owners. I showed them the right-of-ways. It was a project back in Summerfield. Took a little while to get it done, but that's the way we decided to do. Once I showed them we had the right-of-ways, I think we wound up getting 18 consensual right-of-ways because I actually had the developer at that time had given servitudes when the subdivision was built. And I wound up getting 18 out of 20 people to sign off. But we also had the legal rights if I had to do it without that. So there are laws and ordinances that do give us the right to do things. It's just a matter of that I think what Mike's saying is there's so many people along there that he wants to try and work with those property owners. Okay, and I'll have to discuss it a little more with him. Okay, but there's some things we can do.
Yeah, and it seems as if that, you know, I mean, the problem does not present itself to take as long as it does. We have that right of way. We exercise the rights of our right of way, but then we have volunteers within that community to actually say. And so if that coincides with the opportunity to do so.
Listen, I will tell you, and the parish has been sued before years and years ago. There's a fine line, and the reason why we like to get right-of-ways or servitude, even though we have these legal rights, there is a fine line between damaging somebody's property and restoring the property to its natural drainage. So our job is that as everybody knows by Terrebonne, like a lot of these buyers, the water, the adjacent property owners is where that dirt is accumulating from or from drains. Now, that is obstructing the public's right-of-way or drainage. So a lot of it is the adjacent property owners' silt and dirt that just over time accumulates into those drainage canals, and we go clean it. We have the right to restore it to its natural or artificial flow. What we don't have the right to do is to go damage somebody's private property. That comes with I guess what I'm saying is a divine line. So you have to be very careful. So the prudent thing to do, even with all these legal rights, is to try and get permission and try and protect yourself and protect the property owner and not make anybody try and work with them. But if we have to, there are ways to get on that property. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Do you
I have some more to say.
Okay.
Okay, so we understand his position, but understand the position that I'm really saying, and that you said it was a good idea. Now, we want those people to have their property if they gain access at a fair market value. That's one thing. That's consent. He's saying we have right. The other thing about that is that when those bayous are actually either the extraction of the debris in there, then we come back and we do the dredging, the thing that would be really nice to do, if there are any obstructions that goes along with some of these drainage canals, now drainage ditches. Now, some of these drainage ditches, I don't know whether it's going to be responsibility of the individual property owner, whether it's going to be any responsibility of the state or the parish. Up in the same area on Red Street, I think Ms. Wesley, she has a problem. She has a complaint about the drainage, which is on 24. But once we have 24, but then we also have a drain that's coming from a parish street, Red Street, that goes off in there, and they both intersect. But the property that's there, actually, who's responsible for clearing out the debris in there? Because that helps out with some of the drainage into the bayou. So as we're doing that, we want to be proactive in reference to how we're going to do that. Whether is it going to take 6 months? Whether it's going to take everybody that's along that corridor that he's speaking about, because we're talking about 15 bridges. But then also, Mr. Rainey, just getting back to you now, also that drain and the responsibility of the water coming from up north around the Streeter area comes all the way up to about the mall. Then we have another circumstances that go toward the intercoastal canal. So basically what we're dealing with these people right here is from here to the mall. Aren't we? Am I correct?
Mr. Toups.
The project is for the entire length, the 15 miles from Shreveport all the way to the intercoastal. It's not separated north and south. It's the entire length of Bayou Terrebonne from Schriever all the way to the intercoastal.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make here is the water that's draining from Schriever don't go all the way to the intercoastal. That's the point.
Yes, it does.
No, but don't we have pumps that go off into a reservoir?
The Bonanza pump station helps, but it pumps it down Bayou Terrebonne.
Okay, then. Now, the other factor that we have to, I'm trying to find out is that this happens in phases. You spoke about phases. Phases go, what phases there are? You have 5 phases. Okay.
2 separate projects. The cleaning is one. It's not phased. The dredging is broken into 5 phases.
Okay, the dredging. Okay. Okay, Mr. Rainey.
Mr. Harding, would you like to extend Mr. Rainey's time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Rainey, give me 1 minute. I have to turn off Mr. Toups. I'll give you 3 more minutes, but you have to address your questions to the council and not to administration.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
to the council, from our last meeting we had at the Great Committee, some things was brought up that they went to some residents. Since we are 4 to 6 months out, we're gonna have a meeting every 3rd Wednesday of every month. So maybe could we invite these people to our meeting so they can explain to our citizens what is going on and what is the right of way and what will be the, the proper way to do things, so they won't be afraid to give somebody the right of way to get on their property to unclog these drainages and ditches. So we have a meeting every 3rd Wednesday at the Mount Olive Baptist Church, 3076 West Main in Gray, Louisiana. And if we can get the dredging people from, you said GIS and the Kickoff South or whatever that is, if we can get something to those people that's doing the contracts and have them come to our meeting and explain to our citizens in the great community what it all consists of, and they'll have a better understanding themselves if they hear from the people that's doing the work.
I would say I cannot speak for administration. However, we had a meeting last week in the district I represent, and Parish President Dove did allow many different individuals from administration to come and speak at that meeting. So I would imagine that's something Mr. Harding can arrange for you.
Or we'll send them an invitation. We'll send them an email, or we'll send them something to see would they come, and then we can get from there, so our citizens will know exactly what is going on.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rainey, and just get with Mr. Harding, and they can arrange that. And that's the best way to get that information out, is just come straight from the horse's mouth, right?
Yes, and we'll have a town hall meeting, and we'll get all the people that's on the bayous that is affecting, and they'll know exactly what is going on.
All right, appreciate you, Mr. Rainey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to go back in regular order? A motion by Mr. Guidry and a second by Mr. Harding. All in favor? Any opposed? 6:30 public hearing. Letter A, an ordinance to amend the 2022 adopted operating budget, 5-year capital outlay budget, and budgeted portions of the Terrebonne Parish consolidated government for the following items and provide for related matters: Hollywood Road Extension Bridge, $281,686. Item 2, Parish Sports Park Complex, $56,441. Item 3, Housing and Human Services, Head Start, HVAC System, $500,000. Sorry. Homa Police Department, $118,170. Add on 1 police captain, grade P5. Add 1 police lieutenant, grade P4. Add 1 police sergeant, grade P3, and add 4 police officers, grade P1. Planning, $8,433, and add 1 planner, grade 207. Delete 1 planner, 2, grade 209. Public once, public twice, 3 times public. Motion to close by Mr. Guidry, second by Mr. Harding. All in favor? Motion to adopt Mr. Guidry, second by Mr. Harding. All in favor? Motion is adopted. Item B, an ordinance to authorize the permanent relocation of the Terrebonne Parish precinct polling location. Public once, public twice, public 3 times. Mr. Thibodeau, did you fill out a speaker card? Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Thibodeau.
I thought you were doing a good job, but since you asked me that, I'll change my mind. Yeah.
Hey, give me some slack. It's my first time, Mr. Thibodeau.
All right, that's all right. That's fine. I appreciate it. I just want to ask, I know we have backup and someone can read the backup, but when we have an item like this, I think it would be a good idea to put the polling place information. I'm moving from 203 to Main Street or something. I think it ought to be listed in this text. I know it's in the ordinance, but just for future reference, I think it ought to be in the agenda too, because it's published, and folks will know that without knowing the backup is there, all right?
It is in the backup.
I understand, but this is not the backup, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, put it on the agenda.
You're requesting that it be on the agenda?
Yeah. Is it Bayou Towers, by the way? Is that the relocation?
Mr. Harding?
No, it's moving from the Nickel State over there, Allied, to the library.
That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Thibodeau, and thank you, Mr. Harding. 3 times public that we had our public. Motion to adopt? Motion to close? Second by Mr. Guidry. Second by Mr. Harding. Motion by Mr. Guidry. Motion to adopt? Motion to adopt, Mr. Guidry. Second, Mr. Harding. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item C, an ordinance to amend section 4-4 of the Terrebonne Parish Code to allow permanent organizations to sell alcohol at permanent events. Public once, public twice, 3 times public. Motion to close by Mr. Trosclair, second by Mr. Amity. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion to adopt, Mr. Amity, second by Mr. Trosclair. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D, an ordinance to amend section 21-30 of the Terrebonne Parish Code to allow permanent organizations to sell alcohol at permanent events. Public once, public twice, 3 times public. Motion to close by Mr. Trosclair, second by Mr. Amity. All in favor? Motion to adopt by Mr. Amity, second by Mr. Trosclair. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item E, an ordinance to appoint Ms. Brandy Becknell as Terrebonne Parish Council Senior Minute Clerk to set the salary and to set an effective date relative thereto. Public once, public twice, 3 times public. Motion to close by Mr. Guidry, second by Mr. Trosclair. All in favor? Any? Motion to adopt Mr. Guidry, second Mr. Trosclair. All in favor? We have 1 light, Mr. Steve Trosclair.
Yeah, I have a quick question. The way this thing is worded, set, let's see, I'm lost where I'm at now. To set the salary and the date, the hiring, let's see, an effective date relative, okay? Is that date already set, or is it immediately, or is it? I think we need to set that date effective immediately. If there's, or is there a reason that we have to set an effective date?
We don't have anybody here from HR, but we do have a light, Mr. Daniel Babin.
No, I want to agree with Steve. This is something that we need to move forward. Evidently, we don't know the process is what it boils down to.
Mr. Hebert.
Okay, first of all, this ordinance, I don't remember this one coming up about Ms. Becknell being introduced. It was introduced, Ms.
Yes.
Becknell? Okay, I just didn't remember it. And what we did for the next one coming up, we said that one I did, and I had discussions with the chair and with HR, with Dana, how he wanted to do it. His effective date, he wanted it September 1st, because the ordinance was gonna be passed tonight. So I would say that the effective date on this one should be, today's the 24th, and then it's gotta be signed to become official and all that. So that's why we decided to make it clean, is to start September 1st, effective September 1st.
Personally, I think our staff has worked long enough shorthanded, that waiting 2 or 3 more weeks is, in my
No,
opinion,
no,
it's insufficient.
No, it's not 2 or 3 months, next week. That's next
September
week.
1st is next Thursday.
That was the date, that was the effective date that was at least for the next one.
Right.
Okay, I had discussions, I didn't set the date, we had discussions with Human Resources and with the chairman, and they said to set the next one coming up for September 1st, so that's how I did it.
Okay, so that's the next one.
That's the next one.
Well, I think we ought
This
to
one doesn't have a date.
make
to
a
it.
motion that we do this one no later than September 1st.
Well, this one actually will be effective upon the ordinance because it doesn't have a date in it. So when the ordinance passes, if it's gotta be signed, it's gonna have to be signed by, well,
We
it's
won't
got,
pass
it's
the
got
ordinance.
the rate
We've
in
already
there.
established the salary on
The
our
salary's
last.
in, it's in there, it's 1903.
Yeah.
It's in there about an hour, so what I'm saying, as soon as, it's gotta be passed tonight, then Darren's gotta sign it, it's gotta be sent upstairs to Gorder to sign. Once Gorder signs it, then it becomes effective, so.
Okay, well, that's good. If it works that way, I'm okay with that. But I just don't want, the way it was worded right here is kind of vague, and I just didn't want this dragging on any longer than we had to. Thank you.
Mr. Babin?
Yeah, okay, so the salary is set, but the date is not, that's just, we talked about the date. Would it be prudent for us to put that in the motion to make it September 1st?
No, you can't do it, it's not you pass on an ordinance.
Okay, I'm agreeing with Steve, this council staff has worked shorthanded for so long, and we're just trying to get somebody in there to give them a hand.
And
And if it's gonna be by September 1st, I don't have a problem with
No,
not
this
putting
one's
it.
gonna be before then if they sign.
Okay, once it's signed, then they start. Okay,
Exactly.
that's fine.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so, do we have a motion in a second? We have a motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item F, an ordinance for the permanent appointment in the hiring of a clerk and hiring of an assistant clerk for the Terrebonne Parish Council. Public once, public twice, 3 times public. Motion to close, Mr. Guidry, second, Mr. Trosclair. All in favor? Motion to adopt, Mr. Guidry. Second, Mr. Amity. All in favor? We have 1 light, Mr. Babin.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Ms. Tammy and Mr. Keith on becoming the clerk and the assistant clerk. We appreciate all the work that y'all have done this last year. We got big shoes to fill because Suzette was excellent. But we moving forward. We keep Suzette in our prayers. But thank y'all for what y'all do and move it forward. Thank you, dear.
We have to vote. Yes, and I want to congratulate you guys too. You guys have worked tremendously since I got on this council, and it's been one challenge after another. And I've said this before, you guys have taken it with stride and grace, and we really and truly appreciate you guys. So we have a motion, a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. We have a motion to go back in regular order by Mr. Guidry. Second by Mr. Trosclair. All in favor? Any opposed? We are back in regular order. Item B, Councilman Daniel Babin. Motion to discuss with possible action relative to littering in public roadways and drainage facilities as per Chapter 14, Article 3, littering of the Terrebonne Parish Code of Ordinances. Mr. Babin.
Yeah, I put this on the agenda tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to do a motion in a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, all right. Moved by Mr. Babin. Yeah, second by Mr. Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now you can go, Mr. Babin.
Right, I put this on the agenda more out of frustration than anything else, okay? We get calls, each one of us gets calls, I'm not gonna say daily, but plenty in a week's time about what the parish looks like, okay? And I know we've had COVID, I know we've had Hurricane Ida, we have a shortage of people throughout all our departments, but the public, I hate to say they're getting tired of hearing that, but they're getting tired of hearing that, okay? I put this on here specifically about the curb and gutter parts of our parish that I'm seeing more and more people cutting their grass and blowing the grass in the street. I've even seen some contractors doing that. And these are some of the same people that when the street floods, they call and complain about the street being flooded, but yet they blew their trash into the culvert. So, I mean, we have a littering ordinance on the books, but this is one of those things that's very difficult for the police to enforce because they're not passing every time when somebody's cut the grass. But all I'm asking is, and if anybody else needs to chime in, please do. All I'm asking is, we are not the policemen. We can't stop and tell everybody you can't do this and you can't do that. That's not our job. But I'm asking the public, keep in mind, we're in the middle, as was said earlier, the highest point of hurricane season is usually around September the 10th. That's a couple weeks away. We're not even to the halfway point yet, in the worst part, and we're out there throwing trash on the street, letting our lateral ditches get clogged up, and then blowing trash into the street. It's appalling to me that somebody might have it could be a $100,000 house or $1 million house, and they're blowing it into the street. Please, I'm urging the public, think about what you're doing. Help us as government by not littering and and putting stuff everywhere, and then it makes it easier for us working shorthanded. So again, that's my soapbox for the night. But I know we all get the same calls constantly every week about litter and how bad the parish looks. Well, the parish can't do it on its own. It needs the general public to help us out. Thank you. And there was no motion to make.
Thank you, Mr. Babin. We see that everywhere, and you know, Miss Connie Berg is here in the audience, and she's been doing her part by using her weed eater and cutting grass and helping out, and we really and truly appreciate her. And if we could all do our part, like Miss Connie, that would definitely make this parish a much better place. Mr. Babin, you have something else to say?
I'm sorry, Connie, because I was going to acknowledge you. Thank you. It's what you do is tremendous. It's sad that private citizens have to get out and do what the parish, in most cases where you're doing it is the state, okay, is not doing it. I mean, I've said it up here before. I've had people in By the Lodge use their own backhoes to cut the highway because it was so dangerous the last 2 years. But I applaud you for what you're doing, and if anybody else wants to learn from you, you can talk to them and they'll go give you a hand. But thank you very much, Connie.
Thank you. Announcements. Parish President, Mr. Toups, is there any announcements? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Council announcements. Mr. Darrin Guidry. Sorry, Mr. Guidry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I have a couple of announcements. I'd like to announce 1 month from today, we'll be hosting the Terrebonne Parish Safety Expo and kickoff of National Night Out Against Crime. It'll be at the Civic Center from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It is Saturday, the 24th of September. And it's free and open to the public. We'll have displays of law enforcement, fire, medical partners. We'll have activities, handouts for the kids, neighbor and community watch programs, car seat safety checks, safety information, family photo opportunities, and free food and drinks. So please come out. That's 1 month from today. Also, I'd like to wish Parish President Dove a safe return tomorrow from his much-needed vacation. I'd also like to thank the administration staff for working so well with me as I filled in as parish president this past week. We have a great staff here in administration. And I'd also like to thank Councilwoman Jessica Domain for filling in as council chairman this past week while we each filled our respective roles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Mr. Harding.
Yes, I want to, sort of like what Danny is saying about citizens participating. I tell you what, these folk that come out here, they not only hold my feet to the fire, they're rather knowledgeable, and they don't just make phone calls, they show up. So y'all hold me accountable, and I have to hold everybody that sets up here with me accountable also, and I just want to say I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Yes, and we are doing a series of meetings. They're the IDA recovery meetings with our consultants and our administration. It's CSRS along with administration, and they're doing a series of meetings. We had one in Berg. We had one in the Schriever area. There's going to be 3 of them this week. And Mr. Pulaski, would you like to say when those meetings are?
Yes, thank you. So the meetings that we have coming up will be, this is next week, beginning August 30th. So let me stall for 1 second while I pull up the actual dates. But what you're looking at is Monday, August 29th. That'll be in for Grand Caillou Dulac area. That's at Holy Family Catholic Church in Dulac. August 31st, Wednesday, is in Chauvin at the Montague Fire Department. We've got one on September 1st in Houma, and we have one on September 7th in Dularge, one on the 13th in Gibson and Bayou Black area, and then the wrap-up is September 21st back in Houma. So you can see all those dates, including the locations and times, if you go to the parish's website, tpcg.org/IDA recovery. And we have it posted on our website billboards. We're pushing it out on social media and things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Pulaski. And those meetings are very, very important for our recovery, and we're going to do a wrap-up meeting at the end, and it's going to be, basically to create our master plan for recovery. So
Correct.
those
The
are very
information
important.
we get from the citizens we will use to put into our recovery plan, our comprehensive master plan, our Main Street corridor master plan, and our hazard mitigation plan.
Thank you. And we have one more announcement. It's Mr. Babin.
Just one question to Chris. On the Grand Caillou, and they're saying it's at Holy Family Church. Holy Family Church was damaged, so the church has been actually operating out of the KC home. Is that in fact where it's going to be?
Let me turn you back on.
That came up today, and I think they're making that correction. So
Okay.
I'm reading off of the website.
No, correct.
But I think, yes,
But Holy
I
Family
remember seeing
Church
some chatter about
has
that.
to operate out of the
Yes,
KC
sir.
home, which is on Shrimpers Row.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pulaski. And I would like to remind the public that we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Hurricane Ida. And I know people's, anxiety level is getting pretty high. And so we do have a lot of mental health resources here in the parish. And so please feel free to reach out. That's all from me, though. Motion adjourned by Mr. Babin, second by Mr. Guidry. All in favor? Thank you very much, gentlemen.